Hello and welcome to Mind, Body, Sleep, the podcast for anyone out there who wants to understand and recover from insomnia using a holistic perspective. I'm Beth Kendall, your host. Let's get started. Well, hello, everyone. It's so good to be back with you on the podcast today. I've been on a productive pause from the podcast lately, partly to enjoy the last days of summer here in Minnesota, which are always way too short, and partly to build out some exciting new things inside the mentorship. And I'm not going to say too much about that just yet, other than to share that I'll be going a bit deeper into the unconscious mind by adding this fun little mini course to the community. I'm so excited about it. If you listen to the podcast, then you know that the unconscious mind is an area that has always been of great interest to me, and one that I feel is vastly underexplored, especially in the world of insomnia. But I'll be talking much more about that in the future. So what are we talking about today? Well, one of the things people ask me all the time is, why can insomnia go away and then come back? So that's what we're going to dive into. First, I'm going to share a little bit about my own experience with the situation. Then I'm going to talk about the understanding that helped me see it much differently. And lastly, I'm going to emphasize why absolutely nothing has gone wrong when this happens. In fact, on some level, we even gasp, want it to happen in order to truly get beyond insomnia for good. Let's get going. For sure, one of the most bizarre aspects of my own experience with insomnia was how it could be gone for months, and for some people, it's even years at a time, and then just mysteriously come back, seemingly out of the blue. I cannot even tell you how incredibly perplexing this was to me, because when I was in one of those cycles where insomnia was gone, it really felt gone. In my head, I would think, oh, thank God that's over. And I think there was some small part of me that thought, surely I had paid my dues, right? Surely I had suffered enough with such a horrible sleep problem that I had to be off the hook by now. But then somehow insomnia would come back, and not only would I be just completely devastated, but I was left spinning my wheels trying to figure out how that could be. How could I go from sleeping like a relatively normal human being to being right back in the cycle of insomnia, just like it was day one? It made zero sense. But once I started learning more about how memory works, and specifically how the brain captures information and retrieves information, it started to make a lot more sense. And when things make sense to me, I'm much more apt to let them go. So that's what I'm going to share with you. Now, the first thing I want to say about this, and what I really wish someone had said to me during those extreme cycles of insomnia, because it would have made all the difference in the world back then, was that the cyclical nature of the sleep trouble I was experiencing was actually a pretty good indication that what I was dealing with was a mind-body pattern, right? Because your brain doesn't just break and then start sleeping again and then break all over again, which is really how it felt to me. If insomnia was due to a physical or structural issue, it would have been much more consistent, not like an up and down roller coaster that it was for all those years. So, like I said, if someone had explained this to me, I would have seen that my brain was never truly broken. Right? It was just replaying an old pattern. And when I say pattern, what I mean is a collection of memories tied to the experience of insomnia that were getting stirred up again. So let's take a closer look at this. As most of you know and have personally experienced, there's usually some sort of event or stressor that changes your relationship with sleep. For me, it was the move to a different bedroom at age 8. For Richard, my support coach, it was his residency. For some, it's the birth of a child. And for others, it might be a medication reaction. It could be a trip, a time change, or just some kind of stressor that puts some pressure on sleep. The actual circumstance doesn't matter so much as understanding what happens in the brain during that time. So during this time, the brain creates what I call an imprint. An imprint is a memory or set of memories tied to the experience of insomnia that gets stored in the unconscious mind, almost like a snapshot. Now, this imprint can stay dormant sometimes forever. We may never even know it's there. But sometimes it can reemerge later on down the road when something in our present experience resembles the original situation in which the imprint was created. So our past experience is coming into the present moment. One student referred to it almost like a flashback, which I thought was a really good analogy. And it can really be anything that triggers the imprint. It could be a sensation, a place, or even just a smell. The brain notices a similarity and then goes back into the database of its files and pulls up the appropriate imprint to match the situation. There's a great companion blog to this podcast that I wrote a while back. It's called Why Your Triggers Are Mostly Unconscious. And I'll link that up in the show notes in case it's helpful. But this is precisely what our brains are supposed to do. And nothing has gone wrong when this happens. Now, what gets a little tricky here is that when the imprint is activated, it doesn't just bring up the memory, it brings back all the thoughts, emotions, and sensations that were originally tied to that memory. And that's why it can feel like you've been knocked right back to square one, because that's what the imprint is telling you. And that's usually when we innocently start slipping back into old sleep-related behaviors, right? Most of which involve trying to fix our sleep and find interesting ways to try and outrun all the difficult emotions and sensations that are showing up with the imprint. But this is the wrong rabbit hole, my friends, because nothing inherently changes within your body's ability to sleep. You don't just lose that overnight. It's the reactivation of the imprint that we want to focus on. That's where we want to put our love and attention, because updating the imprint is what changes your experience of insomnia down the road. Now, the great thing about memory is it's extremely malleable. It's extremely changeable. It changes every time we bring it into our active awareness. That means that every time you meet insomnia with a little more compassion, a little more understanding, a little less resistance, you're automatically updating the imprint. And isn't that great news? Because I thought I was just stuck with this horrible condition. But using our responses as a way to neurologically update the mental imprints that are holding up insomnia is how we move out of it for good. Hallelujah. So, just to give you a practical example of this, when I used to have a sleepless night, the imprints that came forward in my brain made the whole thing feel very huge and very scary. My brain had connected not sleeping with something very, very bad. So every time I had a rough night, it set off a lot of panic and worry and automatic catastrophizing about how everything could go wrong. But once I started to understand what insomnia is and why I had it, I started to respond much differently. I didn't automatically believe every thought my brain was offering me. And because of that, those old memories started to update, and the imprint updated right along with it. So now if I have a rough night, there's little to no reaction to that. My brain doesn't tag that as dangerous anymore. And the imprints that are associated with that kind of situation, the imprints of the past, no longer hold all that pain and suffering. It doesn't mean that the past didn't happen. Of course it did. But the way I hold those memories now is much lighter. So they don't control my life anymore. Now, there might be some of you thinking right now, but Beth, what if I'm too far gone? Or what if my imprints are too strong? But no imprint is permanent because the brain is designed to change. In fact, it's changing all the time. That's one of the most fundamental truths about neuroplasticity. So if you ever feel discouraged because it seems like insomnia has come back, remember it hasn't actually come back. I think the idea of it coming back implies that insomnia is some sort of outside force or monster out there that is coming back to haunt you, or at least that's how I perceived it when I was going through it. What's actually happening is simply the reactivation of some old wiring that your brain is so graciously offering up as a chance to work through. So in a sense, the obstacle truly does become the path on this journey. I hope this podcast brought some clarity around why insomnia can sometimes go away and come back, and why it's just a normal part of the recovery process. If you're enjoying the podcast, I would love it if you left a quick rating or a review. It helps others with insomnia find this work, and your words might be just the encouragement someone else needs to hear. Until next time, thanks for joining me on the Mind, Body, Sleep podcast. Bye for now. Thanks for being here today. If you love what you heard on today's episode, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the podcast. And if you need more support with your sleep, join me in the Mind, Body, Sleep Mentorship. This 3-month one-on-one program will transform your relationship with sleep so you can get back to living the life that you love, free from the fear of not sleeping. Head on over to bethkendall.com for more details. I'll see you next time.